At my core, I believe all of us have different gifts. The old saying as it goes is, to whom much is given, much is required. And it's incumbent upon me to use those gifts to better the lives of others.
Early on, I realized a couple things about Ken. One, he was very smart. Two, he was a great leader. And three, he loved University of Georgia.
My plan was to major in accounting to go to law school. It was only when I took the undergraduate tax class at Georgia where I found exactly the right combination. I wouldn't be here today and be in the position that I'm in unless a lot of the things that occurred for me while I was at the University of Georgia happened. And anybody's ever done any volunteer work, with people that have less than what we have? Has anyone ever left that and said that you didn't get more out of it than the person you helped? I always have. That always happens to me. There's just something about the feeling that you get when you help someone else.
One of his mentors was Dr. Earl Davis, who worked in Terry, worked in the Toll School of Accounting.
Earl Davis was the professor that taught tax research, which was the first class that I took in my graduate program. And literally, I can tell you, it was like having a 40-hour-a-week job, just that one class. But yet I loved it. I mean, I was learning. I was energized. It was something new. He would not rest until every student in that program had a job. The accounting firms, one, recognized the value of the Terry graduates. It wasn't like you went to an office interview, you never met anybody. You'd go to an office interview and you knew everybody. So I choose Arthur Anderson, and the position that firm had in Atlanta was really literally second to none.
I was a staff person at Arthur Anderson. At the time, you could tell Ken exhibited the confidence and the leadership. You looked up to that. I do remember seeing him in that environment and thinking, this is somebody that's going to be very successful.
One day in 1995, I get a phone call from Bob Shaw. He said to me, I want you to come up here and talk to me about becoming our CFO. I'll never forget that moment. You get opportunities that come along and you're never sure when is that one that I should break from what I'm doing and say, this is my chance, this is my opportunity, and I'm going to take this.
Ken left Arthur Anderson. He was fairly well established. I mean, he had been a successful partner. He was, growing on a national scale.
And then 5 years later, after being a public company CFO, Warren Buffett comes along and buys our company. And I spent the last years, since 2001, working for Warren Buffett.
People look to Warren Buffett as kind of the investing genius. Reaching out to acquire Shaw, really would show the quality of not only the industry that they were in and the company that Bob Shaw and his team, including Ken, had built, but it showed his confidence in that management team.
As he says, he's never walked into a building that didn't have floors. And don't know what's going on, and that's going to change over time. But that was pretty big deal. The flooring industry and anything in the housing industry, when 2005-06, those were the boom years. But let me tell you something. It was a lot more than just a recession. In 2007, 8, 9, and 10, I would say the flooring industry, and more specifically anything housing related, was almost in a depression.
That's when Ken and the other members of management would have to look inward and say, how are we going to manage business? How do we cut costs? How do we make ourselves stronger when this rebounds? You got to rationalize the assets you have, use the inventory, sell the inventory that you have in place, and then be ready for the return of the market. Ken and I had multiple conversations at that period, and that's exactly what they were doing. When the market returned and building began again, they were in a better, bigger, stronger position to advance.
Today, we're a worldwide flooring manufacturer and distributor, doing approximately $5.7 billion in sales. We employ about 22,000 people. We all think about, at some point, what's your legacy? We talked about kind of doing a chair for Earl Davis, the Earl F. Davis Chair of Taxation. It'd been in the works, I guess, for a while, and I began to call people. And we raised $2 million. And when Earl was honored, we actually presented it to him at the accounting night banquet they do in the spring. It was pretty awesome. Do you know who holds the Earl Davis Chair of Taxation today? The Dean of the Business School, right here, Ben Ayers. I think the University of Georgia has more positive momentum today than in any other time in its history. It really is phenomenal.
For years, I've seen these, folks that huge successes from University of Georgia honored. Ken is that person that this award was made for.